Welcome to the Preferred Walk-On Show. I am your host, Seth Saunders, joined by a very special guest today, the Kansas City Star's own Shreyas Laddha. He covers Kansas football and basketball, and most importantly, he is a proud University of Georgia grad. Shreyas, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Well, so first things first, let's not bury the lead here. I want to hear your thoughts and feelings on how you feel like your alma mater is shaping up heading into this 2025 college football season.
I feel better this year than I did last year. I think they've reloaded. I was not the biggest Carson Beck guy, so I'm excited to kind of see how Gunner looks out there. I know I saw an article that said I think this is the most 5 stars Kirby has on the team, so I'm excited the talent, is kind of reloaded. I mean, even in a down year last year, Georgia went to the SEC championship, college football playoffs. It feels like ever since that game against Alabama where they lost to it, I feel like my expectations are always college football playoffs or bust. But I was blessed. They won right after I graduated. And my sophomore year at Georgia, that was the crazy pass the Alabama had in 4th down or something like that, and they lost in the championship game. But I feel good. I'm excited. I'm excited to hopefully watch a little more Georgia this year. I haven't been able to the last couple of years just because Kansas has a lot of games around the same time. But I keep up with it as much as I can, and it's one of those things that makes me feel close to home. Get to watch a lot of college football.
So we're always very interested in college towns and food, drink, and the like in those particular towns. So if you were back in Athens for a game day or a weekend to visit the alma mater, what are some of the places that you must hit, must get a bite to eat or something like that?
I feel like if you're getting breakfast, it's got to be Mama's Boy. Mama's Boy is probably my favorite breakfast spot in Athens, to be honest. I miss the biscuits. I miss the coffee they have down there. The eggs are delicious. If you're going out late night, I love DP Dough. I had many buffalo chicken calzone as a student at like 2-3 a.m. That was a lot of fun. I think I'm not sure they still have it, but there was a Greek restaurant, Euro Spot. I'm not sure if they still have it, but it's a really good one for lunch. Delicious sandwiches. Cali and Tito's is probably my favorite restaurant in Athens. Love me a chicken cubano. Yeah. I haven't had it in years. I miss it, honestly. I haven't had the chance to go back to Athens since 2022. So I'm hoping to make a trip down maybe in the next couple of months, make it happen. It's been too long. But yeah, I mean, those are the favorites. I feel like you can't really go wrong in Athens. There's a lot of good food. I mean, heck, even the dining hall food I miss sometimes. It's when you're trying to figure out what to cook every day as an adult, you don't realize how easy it was just to go to the dining hall and pick up some food.
Gosh, man, the Classic City it's so special in so many ways, and you hit some great spots there. I mean, Mama's Boy is one of our all-time faves. I mean, that is a must-stop when we're back in Athens. So I love that. Well, hey, man, look, exciting, right? Week 1 kicking off now. You kind of were part of the appetizer last weekend, week 0. Fresno State came to town and visited the Jayhawks at the newly renovated booth, and I think their narrative is interesting this year, right? Because they obviously lost a lot, but the big thing they bring back is Jalon Daniels. And I think if he stays healthy, he makes Kansas a very interesting ball club in the Big 12. What did you see opening weekend that kind of gave you a feel for this team going into this 2025 season?
I mean, they were dominant in both ends. I think that was the question mark, right, with so many new players and transfers coming in. I think they had 30 guys graduate last year, 15 starters. So they reloaded the transfer portal. They brought in 20-plus transfers. But the big thing, like you said, was Jalon Daniels and Daniel Highshaw coming back. Those are 2 6-year guys from 2020, that class. And, he's only 22 still. Like everyone's like, oh, he's been here forever. But with his injuries and everything, he's had the chance with the medical red shirt, with the COVID year. I'm really, really intrigued by what he can offer this year. I think he knows what's on the line with NFL aspirations and dreams, and he played phenomenal against Fresno State. I think that was the best he's looked since 2023. Last year had a really up and down year, recovering from back injury. I thought he was in complete control with his legs, with the passing ability. He didn't force anything into tight windows. I think, he did a tremendous job of making the offense look so good, but also, it just felt like a vast difference between the Jalon Daniels we saw for most of last year. Obviously last year he ended on a little hot streak compared to what he was in the first half, but I think so much of Kansas' season is highly dependent on how he plays and how healthy he is. It's something I wrote about. He played phenomenal, but he took some hits in that game, and that's a worry for Kansas. That's a worry for Kansas fans. That's a worry for somebody that just has to cover them and hopes for good football games because he gets hurt a lot. So that's something I'm paying attention to.
Yeah, I thought they were such a fascinating watch last year because if you go back and really break down that season, they're a few fourth quarters away from really being in the mix. And I know, shoulda, coulda, woulda, but it's not like we're talking about a bad football team from last year. And he's the centerpiece of that. And I just think given what Lance Leipold's building there, and I thought it was fascinating given the offseason and the storylines with Texas Tech to hear about the Booth donation last week to KU, obviously monster donation going to be invested in NIL. It's just, they are a program to me. And I talked with my brother who was on the show last week about it. Historically a basketball school, right? And basketball is king there. I don't think anybody would argue that. But the NIL era is giving them a stake now to say, hey, we're here and we want to be a player in this. And it seems like they're going to have all the resources to make that happen. Is that your feel on things?
Yeah, I mean, Travis Goff has done a tremendous job since he's become athletic director at Kansas. He's invested a lot in this football program. He clearly knows that football is king in revenue generation, and Kansas can be a two-sport school. Since I arrived in 2022, like late 2022, I started at the Star in November that year. I remember I've gotten the chance to know Travis well. We have a pretty great relationship, and he's always said, they want to be a two-sport school or a three-sport school. They want to be, in the conversation with the Florida Gators. I mean, I hate saying it, but Florida's done a great job of being good at both sports. And Georgia last year, right? Yep. They would have done it for the first time in a long time. I think, Pete Thamel said it best a couple weeks ago where, he hasn't seen a program like, Kansas invest this much into football. And I completely agree with that. I mean, they're putting a lot of money and effort and time into football. They have the right coach to do it. Lance Leipold has a lot of respect in the industry. I mean, there was some rumors a couple of years ago that he might take the UW job. He declined it, it seemed like. And that was a big show of faith for Kansas football and his program for everything it's been through. They haven't really had a coach they can rely on since the Mangino years. And that was back when I was, I think, 10 years old. So it's been a while, and I think the thing is, Travis knows, obviously we talk about realignment, everything like that. If push comes to shove, you want to be as good as you can be in football and basketball and not just one-sided. Yep. And I think he knows, if there's aspirations of eventually going to another conference or whatever, which I don't think is happening right now or anytime soon. He said to me that, they want to be the leaders of the Big 12, but if it condenses, because every year it feels like the conferences get bigger and bigger and there's less, power conferences out there.
Yeah. I just think in a lot of ways they could be an interesting case study because there's a lot of resources and a lot of people that love that university, and nothing that they would love more than to see Kansas be as prevalent in football as they are in basketball. And, I have been so enthralled with this Texas Tech story this offseason because you're talking about a non-traditional football power that is saying, hey, look, we've got the resources to make this happen. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to plant our flag in the ground, and we're going to say that we want to be a prominent player in this space and in college football. And, I think this is the interesting part about the landscape we're in right now, right, is that it makes things a lot more wide open and moves things away from some of the traditional powers that we're used to. So, man, obviously I have some bias because I got 3 family members that are proud KU grads, but I'm always having an eye on Lawrence and what they're doing as an athletic department. And I love it, man, because it was awesome. Todd Rees and Aqib Talib, those days when they were good, they're going to the Orange Bowl and beating Virginia Tech. I mean, the atmosphere there can be outstanding. And once the booth is done, I mean, is there going to be a nicer stadium in the Big 12?
I mean, I don't think so. I think it looks tremendous
Yeah.
now. I've told Travis this, that, I thought it looks a lot better than the renderings look like. I think they've done a tremendous job. I mean, like, we know, Kansas is not going to be good at football, but there is a real possibility that Kansas can be a team that makes a bowl game every year. Like, that's not out of the realm of possibility. They're investing a lot of money into being that type of team, and getting that $300 million donation from David Booth is something that's only going to help them, with stadium building, but also roster building for football. Like, that money can be used towards NIL resources, towards the salary cap that they've kind of put in place. That's the stuff that, pays dividends. That's the stuff that keeps players at Kansas instead of going somewhere in the SEC or going to the Big Ten. I had heard from a former player that Jalon Daniels, for example, this offseason had multiple Big Ten and ACC schools interested in him, and Kansas, wanted him back. They gave him a raise, and they did a great job of making sure that he has a big decision maker for the talent coming in and out of the program. He recruited a lot of the guys that came to Kansas. Emmanuel Henderson from Alabama is a guy that everyone's been raving about. That's the stuff that builds an investment, right? Like, that's the stuff that keeps players that are good in Lawrence. And I think a lot of people, I've talked to guys from the SEC, the Big Ten, who've come in. I think everyone expects Kansas to be this, like, middle of nowhere, college town surrounded by cornfields and this and that. But as somebody from Atlanta, like near Atlanta, it is not that. Like, Lawrence is really, really nice, and Kansas City is really nice. And, like, a lot of these guys tell me, like, once they get into Lawrence and they see what it is, they don't want to leave. The hard part is getting them to come to Kansas, right, to visit. Yeah. So it's kind of how I feel. Like, once you get these guys to visit, it gets so much easier to build a program and kind of go off from there.
Yeah, it's an outstanding point. And again, my bias showing, but dude, I think Kansas City is one of the more underrated towns in all of America. I mean, City Fountains is outstanding. You've got world-class barbecue everywhere you look. It's a great sports town. Power and light is incredible. I mean, it's an outstanding city. I want to stay in Kansas City, actually. I'm fired up for this matchup tonight at Arrowhead, okay? You got Nebraska in year 3 under Matt Rule, and you got Scott Satterfield's Cincinnati team coming to town. Travis Kelce going to be in the house tonight. Newly engaged Travis Kelce taking over the internet. And, yeah, man, in our Big Ten preview episode, I picked Nebraska to go to the Big 12 title game, and my co-host about fell out of his chair. But, man, I'm telling you something. Matt Rule in year 3 is like its own type of voodoo, I feel like. Like, he has something in year 3, and he's there this year. He's got a great returning quarterback. They made nice adds in the transfer portal. I just think they have a shot to really make a run and be a problem in this Big Ten. And it starts tonight on a gigantic stage at Arrowhead Stadium. So, given that that's the town you're in, what are your thoughts on that ball game tonight and what they could possibly do this year?
I'm stoked to watch it. I'm excited to see Dylan Raiola. Like, everyone calls him Patrick Mahomes' clone. I'm excited to see him, in Arrowhead. I'm sure Travis Kelce will be there because, a couple of years ago when Kansas was playing Texas Tech in Lawrence, not last year, but the year before, Patrick Mahomes was in the press box area in the suites. I ran into him in the bathroom, actually, and he had security there. So I presume, Travis Kelce's probably in the house watching that game. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, you're right. Kansas City is an underrated Midwest city. And, every time I think it's been on the central stage, whether it's with the Chiefs or with Kansas football or whatever, it shines. And I think today is another opportunity to kind of showcase that it is, a place to visit, and it's going to be a place to visit when they have the World Cup. So many base camps are going to potentially be held there. But I'm really excited to kind of see this game because Cincinnati, I know, is in the up and up. They have had a kind of a rocky couple of years, but Nebraska is going to be, I think, really, really good this year, like you said. And I am really intrigued because this is a Nebraska team. I pay attention to them a little bit just because they're right around the corner, not too far from Kansas. That I think has the opportunity to surprise a lot of people and the opportunity to be even better than, what they were last year, which wasn't a bad team, but I think they could be even better.
We're coming into a 2025 season that feels like to me is maybe as wide open a season as I can remember in a long time. And I think a lot of that is driven by the fact that there's just not a a lot of returning guys at the quarterback position across the country. So as you look at the full landscape of college football as we're about to start the season, which teams are you expecting to separate themselves, and which teams do you feel like could really make a play that nobody is currently talking about or thinking about?
Well, I feel like this is the year that like make or break James Franklin and Penn State. Like this has got to be the year they do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like 'cause if it doesn't happen this year, he's probably gone. I mean, Kansas' former offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki went over there, and he's done a tremendous job at Penn State. But I'm really intrigued to see because Drew Aller is a older quarterback. He clearly wasn't ready for the NFL last year. I think this is the year for him to raise his draft stock. I'm really intrigued to see because I feel like the Big Ten is pretty wide open. I mean, everyone's going to say Ohio State, Ohio State, and I think Ohio State's going to be great. But I don't think Michigan is as good as it was the last couple of years. I think it's going to be a Penn State, Ohio State battle for that. So those are the two teams that I'm looking at from that conference. From the SEC, Georgia's always up there. You know, I'm intrigued to see how Ole Miss looks like without Jackson Dart. You know, I like I know he's kind of a Twitter troll, but I do like their head coach. I never count out Bama because a down year for Bama is still winning against Georgia. It feels like it, you know, it feels like a man. So I think they'll be there. I think Florida will be better, a little better than expected. I don't think they'll be contending for an SEC title, but I do think they'll be in the 9-3 type range. I think those are the couple teams I'm looking at in the Big 12. It's Iowa State that I really like. Kansas State's always in the contention. Texas Tech is the easy favorite there. I think Texas Tech could be the team that separates themselves out if we think they're as good as they are. I mean, I like their head coach. He's really good. He's as a player coach. And I'm really intrigued to kind of see if Arizona State can repeat what it did last year, surprise everybody. I think that's the one thing with the Big 12 is the conference is so wide open, it feels like, compared to the Big 10 or the SEC. And the ACC, you know, as a Patriots fan, I'm very excited to see Bill Belichick and see if he's actually got it or if he's just doing this retirement swan store and see, you know, like we're all just wasting our time. I think he plays on Labor Day, so we'll get the chance to kind of see him as a college. I just still can't believe he's coaching college ball. But, I mean, he's obsessed with coaching. I know, you know, Bill's going to be a good coach anywhere he goes. I'm intrigued to kind of see there. I think the ACC is probably the weakest conference out of the Power Four, I think. And, you know, I think UNC probably comes out. Georgia Tech should be pretty good this year too, unfortunately. But I'm like, you know, I think when you look at the SEC, Texas is everyone wants to know how good Arch Manning is. I think this would be a great test for him. Ohio State's going to be, I think, a really, really good early test. Notre Dame's another team that's going to be pretty good. Just a lot of different teams that I feel like the field feels relatively wide open compared to, you know, a couple years ago when Georgia was the heavy favorite. Ohio State was a heavy favorite last year. I really think it could go a lot of different ways. And with the college football playoffs being as big as it is, upsets happen, things happen. I mean, I didn't think Georgia was going to lose to Notre Dame last year, and it happened, right? Obviously, and a quarterback change and all, but you know, I'm really intrigued to kind of see how this season plays out because I feel like there's no clear definitive favorite because, like you said, the returning quarterbacks are not there at the powerhouses. It feels like a pretty new field of quarterbacks at, you know, places like Ohio State, you know, Georgia. I think Penn State's the one exception to that. And Texas has a brand new quarterback in Arch Manning. We think he's good. Former Texas player Justin Finkley plays at Kansas. He told me he's the real deal. I'm intrigued to see if he's right, you know?
Yeah. You bring up Carolina and Belichick, man, which I love their week one matchup. And they play one of the teams in the Big 12 who I feel like nobody's really talking about. They're just kind of laying in the weeds. Dude, Sonny Dykes and Josh Hoover and that TCU squad, man, they come up and bite you. And so I'm fascinated to watch them when they play Carolina in the opener. And, yeah, man, you bring up a couple other Big 12 storylines that I think are fascinating too, like the Arizona State thing. I love Sam Leavitt and I love Kenny Dillingham. But I also wonder, has the loss of Cam Scatterbo not been given the proper volume and weight because he was so dynamic in what he was able to do for that offense? You know, historic as a player there, the only player in Arizona State history to go over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. And then, man, you brought up the one that I don't think not enough people talk about, and that's Rocco Beck. Like Iowa State, him and Matt Campbell as a duo. I just feel like he has got a lot of unquantifiables. He's got a lot of it to him. And yeah, man, for a lot of those reasons, the Big 12 is a fascinating conference to me because I think its strength is in its depth. And I don't know, I just can't wait to see how it's going to play out. Because to your point, I know what people think is going to happen, but like they got to play the ball games. And there's 9-10 teams there that could really be a fly in the ointment, I think.
I mean, last year Arizona State was ranked 15th in the preseason poll from League Media. They won the conference. Yeah. And they were phenomenal last year. Right? Like nobody saw them being as good as they were, right? And BYU was a lot better than expected as well, too.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. Like, I think, it's really hard. I know a lot of, my friends, Georgia fans, SEC fans, like to rag on the Big 12 because it is not, maybe the top end is not quite what the SEC is. But I honestly think because the conference is so wide open, sometimes it makes it more fun to watch those games because I know, like if Georgia's playing somebody at like Vanderbilt at the bottom of the conference, I know Vanderbilt might be within one score in the first quarter, but they won't be within one score at the half or, in the fourth quarter. In the Big 12, there's plenty of games where you're like, this team has won 2 games. Like Houston is right here with like Arizona State. Like they're not that far, like it's stuff like that. I think that makes intriguing. And I think, like I love NFL football. I love college football, but I think the reason people love college football is the unpredictability of it. At the end of the day, they're college students. They're not, consistent like they are in the pros. The high end talent sometimes doesn't show up like it should. And I think that's what, to me, makes it so intriguing with the Big 12. Like Josh Hoover, he can sling the ball. Like he was really good against Kansas last year. I was very impressed with him. I think he'll be a great test for UNC, and it'll be a good test for them because UNC is going to probably have a good chance to win the conference or be near that in the ACC. Like I really don't know what's going to happen with the Big 12 because last year I thought Kansas was going to win 10 games. And then they fell on their face. And then they look like a team that could win 10 games. That 3-game win streak would be 3 straight ranked opponents. And then they fell on their face against Baylor. So I try not to go out there and make declarative statements anymore with the Big 12 because I learned my lesson last year. My prediction had them winning 11, I think, and then they won 5. And I got a lot of emails from readers and people like, when are you going to publicly apologize? And I'm like, this is why you don't go out there and make declarative statements. It's a prediction business.
That's right.
When you're right, nobody remembers when you're right. They remember when you're wrong.
Yeah.
So the year before, I had Kansas winning 9. So when they won 9, nobody's saying, hey, Shreyas, pat yourself on the back. They won 9, So this year I had them winning 7. So I really have no idea. I think Kansas could be in the top end of the conference, depending on how the defense is. I think so much of it depends on how they look against Mizzou, if they can finally beat Kansas State after getting so close the last couple of years. The conference is just so much fun to watch. I'm excited for the SEC as well. I'm excited for the Big 12. I mean, I think that's the intrigue of college football, right? Is there's just random storylines, random players that come out of nowhere and have years of their life, and then they end up in the NFL because they had an incredible year. Joe Burrow, prime example of that a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Speaking on that kind of topic, I'm going to plant one in your mind because you talked about Ole Miss a little bit, man. Austin Simmons is one for me. I really think come midpoint of the season, Austin Simmons is going to be a guy that people across America know about that they don't know about right now. I just think he has the potential to be electric and could really tilt the field for Ole Miss because I do think there's not a lot of weight on them this year. Mm-hmm. They had so much juice last year. There was so much expectation. They graduated so much talent. And, look, Lane's going to go in the portal and he's going to get guys. So, that roster is going to be fine, I think, from a talent perspective. And to your point, man, I do think it would be fun to play for him. He's going to say what he thinks. He's going to cut it 100%. Loose. He's just a time, dude. Yeah. So, I don't know, man. They're an interesting watch for me, and Austin Simmons especially.
No, I completely agree. And I think, you know what you're getting with him out of a coach. I think the floor is pretty high for him as a coach. And I think, like you said, he can recruit well. I went and watched some of the Jackson Dart, I think they showed some of the interviews of him at the NFL, and he didn't come off as like the smartest quarterback and the most technical quarterback. But that just tells you Lane was doing a great job of making things easy for him out there at Ole Miss, like the concepts and stuff like that. Like I think that's just an underrated thing. Like I know a lot of people like to crap on Tennessee and their offense, and those guys not maybe translating the NFL. But at the end of the day, them getting drafted that high is a reason why, like to showcase, maybe they're not winning as much as they should, but these guys are getting drafted first, second, third, fourth round, whatever, because the offense looks so good in those games. And I think it's the same thing, right? Like, maybe Lane Kiffin is not winning as many games as he should, but these guys are getting drafted high. There's a reason why people want to play for him. He's a fun coach. He's a player's coach. And I'm really intrigued to kind of see how they look this year, because I really think the SEC could go a lot of different ways. I think Georgia looks like a clear favorite to me alongside Texas, but I thought Georgia was going to be better than they were last year, and they were in a ton of a couple of one-score games, which seems they had no business being one-score games with.
Yep. All right, I want to end with you on some more less football questions, more culture questions. I want to talk food with you. So first and foremost, go-to barbecue spot in Kansas City for you. You only get to pick one. Where are you going?
Oh, this is a good one. There's Joe's. I'll probably go Joe's. It's a classic. Everyone loves Joe's. It's pretty good. I think every time my friends come in, I let them do a little like barbecue roulette, take them around every barbecue spot, and most of the time they just end up picking Joe's.
Yeah, man. I'm perfectly okay with that selection. I'm happy to have a Z-Man and then call it a day. So I'm in on that. All right, let's stay in the same line of questioning. You get to travel throughout the conference, covering the Jayhawks. Tell me some of your favorite places in the various college towns around the Big 12. So whether that be places to eat, bars, whatever it may be.
I really like Houston. I know everyone kind of hates on it because it's a mess, a traffic mess, but the food in Houston is phenomenal. It's really, really good.
Phenomenal.
I had like some family up there. I'm not vegetarian, but I mostly eat chicken and turkey. That's like the two meats I eat. And they took me to like a vegetarian, like vegan Chinese buffet. It was nuts how good it was. I've never tried Chinese food that good at a buffet before, and I was so impressed. That one was good. I miss going to Austin. I think that was my favorite spot to go to when Texas was in the conference. I'm a big Austin guy. Great bar scene. The food scene, breakfast burritos were delicious. I'm trying to think where else I really like. I love to get a breakfast burrito wherever I go. Like I get to try to compare and contrast different breakfast burritos around the country. I'm trying to think. I don't love Lubbock. I don't love Waco. Those are not in my high end list. I like Arizona State's conference, or is pretty nice. I like that area. It's pretty good. A lot of good food around Phoenix. Honestly, if you're near a big city, I'll probably like it. I'm not a big middle of nowhere college town guy in the Big 12, at least for conference wise. I just think it's a little too in the, how do I say this in the nicest way possible? A little too in the boondocks for me. Like I hate making the trip to West Virginia. It is the worst trip. I feel like I'm walking into like, there's nobody that looks like me in West Virginia. I can tell you that much. And it's always a little unnerving walking into Morgantown when they're hopping around, the damn gun fires off at halftime, and I'm like, okay, what happened? But yeah, right. That's probably my least favorite. Morgantown, like every year Kansas doesn't have away Morgantown for football or basketball. I silently say, heck yeah, I'm not going to Morgantown this year. But sorry to any Morgantown listeners, it's just not my favorite. I'm trying to think what else I really like. I like TCU's campus. It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Don't like Manhattan that much. It's kind of what I thought Kansas would be coming from Georgia. It is what it when you were driving there, you're going through the cornfields. Don't like that. Don't like that feel. Where else? Iowa State's not bad. It's just so cold, especially by the time we go to Iowa State for basketball and football. Yeah. I'm not a big fan, but Ames is not bad. Oklahoma State, solid. I like Oklahoma City, good city. Pretty underrated college town is I like Omaha a lot, actually. I really liked Omaha. Good food scene.
Yeah.
Creighton, it's fun to, when Kansas plays Creighton. I covered UConn for a year, so I got to go to Creighton as well. Then I was very pleasantly surprised how good the food scene was in Omaha. But I've been around the country, the block. I will say the Big 12 is not my favorite conference for cities to visit. It's gotten better over the years, but I think the SEC and the ACC have it beat in that sense.
All right, last question for you, and this is a non-football question, but given who you cover, I can't let you off without asking this. But for anybody who loves sports and has never been there, rank how quickly, if they have the opportunity, they should buy tickets and experience a game at Fog Allen Fieldhouse.
12 out of 10. It's incredible. Like, my dad's not a big basketball guy. But because of my work in the last, couple of years, he's gotten really into college basketball. He reads a lot of my stuff. And, he tells me, like, he watches the stuff on TV. And he hasn't had the chance to go to a game in person yet. But, and he's like, it's so loud in there. I've gotten the chance to cover 2 premier programs in UConn and Kansas, men's basketball, both ends. And I really don't think anything compares to Kansas. I'm excited to see what it feels like whenever the UNC game happens, and see how different it is. But from what I've heard, people say Fog Allen is, it's a unique advantage. You walk in there, an away fan is kind of hot. It feels kind of gross, but I feel like I always think it's kind of an inherent advantage for any, Kansas fan or Kansas player, because they're used to playing in that kind of heat in Fog Allen. It gets so loud in there. It's packed. The food has gotten a lot better over the years, concession-wise. They've really improved it. It's just a fun experience. If you like basketball and, especially if you like college basketball, the amount of history and, like, stuff you just walk through, you can just feel how important it is. Creator of basketball was the first ever coach at Kansas. He's the only guy who's had a losing record in their entire lineage of coaches. Yeah. Like, that should tell you all you need to know about how good it is. I mean, like, it's just, I've been to Indiana for a college basketball game. That was fun, but I don't think it compares to Kansas. I think it's the place to be. The only place I'd like to see compared to this is Duke. But unfortunately, Kansas plays them at Madison Square Garden, which I think is a lot more fun of an arena than anything. But, yeah. Cameron's a great comparison. For me, it's the only one that's comparable, but they're different, The field house is singular in its own way, and Cameron Indoor is singular in its own way. But both of them I feel like are bucket list trips. I went to Big Monday when KU played A&M like back in 2008, and man, it was just deafening. And it's just one of the cooler sporting experiences I've ever had in my life is watching a KU game at the Fog. So I'm with you, brother. It's something that if you love sports, and especially if you love college basketball, man, you got to do it. There's just no place like Lawrence. Head yourself over to the Wheel pregame, get tuned up a little bit, and then head down to the Fog and have a night, man. So, 100%. It's the best. Well, look, Shreyas, we really appreciate you coming on, brother. Please tell our listeners how they can support you and follow you. Yeah, I have all my kids' basketball football work at thekcstar.com. KCStar.com also works. You can follow me at Twitter at SHRE98, Shrey988. And that's usually the 2 social media I use the most. I don't really use Twitter or Instagram as much. It's all private. But I'll be posting a ton on Twitter, and I'll have all my work on the Stars website.
We love it, brother. Well, we enjoyed talking with you, Shreyas. We'll have you back on again soon, okay?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.